through the Garrett Lee Smith Campus Suicide Prevention Program. That's a lot. And hello to my guests, Dr. Bassett, Dr. Varen Mignano. Say hello.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hi,
Good to be
everybody.
here.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. Uh, I told you a little bit about the format. So would you, the two of you, like to take some turns and tell us a little bit about yourselves, your background, educations, and things before coming to LaGuardia?
Um,
You-
Shante, I guess I'm gonna go first.
Yeah, either one. Sorry.
Yeah, my goodness. Well, I have a doctorate in I have my PhD in social work from Adelphi University. My history, I have a my degree is in as a I have a I'm a licensed clinical social worker with psychotherapy privilege in the state of New York. Um, p- I've been here at LaGuardia since November of 2008, so I've been here for quite a long time. And prior to that, I was a social work supervisor at Queens Hospital Center in Jamaica, New York, for about 11 years. And my experience really was working a lot with the health and mental health populations, psychiatric emergency room, medical units, palliative care. So I have a really, really broad range of experience in working with individuals in crisis and suicide and mental health needs across all age groups. Prior to that, I worked for an organization called CUSAC, and this is going back many, 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 many years, in working with autistic children and adults and their families. Um, and that's kind of a lifelong area for me in working with the autistic and neurodiverse population. I'm also the PI and project director for another grant here at LaGuardia Community College. The which is funded by the CUNY REACH grant, for the LaGuardia Neurodiversity Program, which we serve autistic students. But that's probably a separate radio show in the future, probably. Um, so that's been kind of my lifelong thing. And I've overseen several grants in the Wellness Center. My position in the Wellness Center is the manager of health and wellness education and grant development, which is also a mouthful. I basically am the pretty much the acting associate director in the Wellness Center, and I also part of my role is to help with the administrative aspect, provide clinical support to students, and also to really seek out, find, and write grants. So my part of my role is as a grant writer. So we're really proud to have this SAMHSA grant right now with us, and being able to be able to happy to kick it off for everybody. I hope
All
that's
right.
all. I know that
That's
was a mouthful.
yeah. No, that's a lot of stuff, but it's good stuff.
Yeah,
Dr. Bassett, you want to take a shot? Take a turn?
she
I
can
will
do it.
do, I will do my very best after, coming after my esteemed colleague, Dr. Varen McDonald. But hello once again, everyone. I'm Dr. Shante Bassett. I've been working at LaGuardia in the Wellness Center since July of 2015. So I'm coming up on 6 years. Woo-hoo. And I've honestly loved every minute of it. My role at LaGuardia, I am the staff psychologist in the Wellness Center. So what does that entail? It ebbs and flows depending on the needs of the students and the needs of the office. But I have assisted with crisis management, focusing on trauma responses and also trauma-informed care with our students. I've assisted with outreach. I'm currently doing that as well. And I also have taught in the past, so I'm an adjunct professor as well as the staff psychologist in the Wellness Center. As far as my background and history in the field, I have over, I think we're at 15 years now, 15 years of clinical experience, which started actually when I was in my senior year of college. I have a background in actually correctional and forensic mental health. So that's what I was doing before I got into university mental health. So I was working in a maximum security prison in Maryland as a senior in college. And then I graduated and attended John Jay College of Criminal Justice, that every CUNY person is familiar with. And that's where I obtained my master's in forensic psychology and did research in mental health courts and things of that nature. And then I started my tenure at Long Island University Post. And that's where things kind of shifted for me. I worked at Rikers, did my internship there, and then I did my final internship, my 5th year internship at Brooklyn College. And that's when I started working in university mental health, and I realized how much I loved it because it really pulled everything that I'm passionate about into one space. So I could teach if, there was an adjunct opportunity available, doing individual counseling, group counseling, doing outreach, doing some supervision, and, helping to form policy and things of that nature. So when I did my internship at Brooklyn College, that pretty much sealed the deal that this is something that I would want to do for long term. And my first job after defending my dissertation was at LaGuardia, and they haven't been able to get rid of me since. So,
Very good.
So a lot of the things that I started at Brooklyn College, I've been able to continue at LaGuardia as far as crisis management and just
nor do we want to get rid of her. We keep her locked somewhere.
You made my office all nice and pretty, so definitely not getting rid of me. But yeah, it's been quite the experience.
I'm told by Dr. Riccio, who's off camera and watching the Twitch stream, there was some sort of glitch in sound, and she wants me to remind folks of what the topic is. So I'll just read it again. That my guests today are Dr. Shante Bassett and Regina Varon-Mignano. They are the LaGuardia Wellness Center, and we're going to be talking about the Campus Leaders Against Student Suicide project, which has been awarded a 3-year grant of over $300,000 from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, with funding provided by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services through the Garrett Lee Smith Campus Suicide Prevention Program. So a lot of stuff. I heard at one point you called it something. This is it because of the last three? You called it something, Dr. Varon-Mignano, like a shorthand phrase.
We called it the SAMHSA grant. It's easier, or the SAMHSA. It's the Garrett Lee Smith Suicide Prevention Grant, but we just called it the SAMHSA grant.
SAMHSA?
So, yeah, SAMHSA, which is for Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration. That's the acronym for it. Okay, it's kind of it's an easy way for us to remember it. So my apologies for using an acronym.
It may be easier. No, it's good because it'll be easier than me having to read all this stuff again from the screen. It's interesting because I was at some meeting and people were saying like, oh, I've heard of this, but I never really knew what it was, and it's good to know. And I'm always saying like, why don't you watch my show and maybe you'd know what some of the things are that are going on in other divisions, because we're all kind of siloed in our divisions and focused on our stuff. But we get a lot of emails about the Wellness Center, predominantly from Matthew Jaffe about workshops. And I know Frank Bello also, is there. But tell us some of the intricacies of the Wellness Center, because you were saying, for example, Regina was saying that she is involved with grants writing and overseeing an aspect, and Ante, you were saying that you also, you're the main psychologist in the licensed psychologist. But tell us a little bit about all the aspects of the Wellness Center, because most faculty or staff don't necessarily know.
Yeah, I think there's multiple aspects. Maybe Shante, I can, we have the individual counseling aspect of the Wellness Center, and jump in, Shante, at any point to let me know if I miss anything. We have the individual counseling aspect, which is where students could come in and request an individual counseling session with one of our wellness counselors, and they're eligible for 16 sessions per academic year. So if a student required, support from, for example, if the student requires support, they can see a counselor for up to 16 sessions for the academic year. And so, for example, if we have students that requested services in June, they're actually eligible, to continue through September, and then in September those 16 sessions restart for the academic year. So they really do get a lot of support, and part of the goal of counseling is to really help the student holistically develop coping mechanisms, whatever supports that they need. If they need a referral on the outside to help guide them into doing that, any crisis and from any issues with crisis and suicide, we assess them for that. So it's really very much an in-depth session, and all of our counselors are licensed either as licensed clinical social workers or a licensed social workers or a licensed mental health counselors. We do have an aspect of our program. We do have mental health counselors that are in training, and also our graduate intern program, which I'm going to let Shantae talk about because she oversees that program. And you forgot to mention that, Dr. Bassett. I'm sorry, forgive me. I'm so don't want to be inappropriate here.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
I
Where
know.
we miss something, our colleagues are going to fall right in and help us.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's a good overview. Another thing that's important to mention is our outreach efforts, our outreach and
Absolutely.
education efforts, as well as our alternative wellness classes, because a lot of people aren't going to address their mental health concerns through individual or group counseling, especially people from diverse ethnic backgrounds, which we know all you have to do is walk through the hall of flags in the M building and you see the diversity of LaGuardia. A lot of people from a lot of those cultures aren't going to sit down and just bear all. So we have the alternative wellness classes, and they are just that. They're alternatives to an individual and group counseling. So we've had art classes, we offer Tai Chi, yoga, game break, and basically they are different ways to help manage stress. And if a student is able to manage their stress, then they're better equipped to be effective in the classroom. That's our theory. We have the alternative wellness classes, which is they're a huge hit. Students, those are well attended. We also have different forums that we offer, forums and workshops for students, faculty, and staff alike, just to make sure that conversations are being had surrounding mental health, especially during the pandemic. Everything was virtual. So, people had the option of coming to these forums to talk about how their mental health is being affected. And then that kind of gave us the opening to talk about other things and use our virtual platforms to make sure that we're getting out that psychoeducation that's necessary in order to make sure people are pursuing optimal mental health.
Yeah, it's very very complicated job to provide these services for the college. I remember when I was part of the college senate, there was always a concern: did we have the numbers of staff to handle? I know the work. If you divide, let's say you divided up the college enrollment, it would be the numbers are high, but obviously, I mean, part of it has to do with who is seeking out the help. For example, can they be seen? Particularly if they find themselves in crisis. And it sounds also like, there are obviously all the other coping approaches, but what's the workload like there? I mean, do you feel like the Wellness Center is able to provide, particularly when we know that the age that our students, let's say what's the average age? 21, right? Is the average age of a LaGuardia student, but we know that students going to college are typically struggling psychologically with many issues, and on top of it, we've got a population that's so diverse, doesn't really have not most of them don't come from backgrounds where taking advantage of free psychological or counseling sessions is part of the the social fabric of what they know. Sorry, I said a lot of things there. Somewhere in there was a question, though. Are we able to keep up with the needs of the population, you think?
I think that's a great question. I know with the recent CARES funding that we received last year from the federal government has really helped us in being able to hire several part-time counselors, and hopefully that it looks like we're going to be able to continue that into the fall semester. I And I think looking beyond that is definitely a consideration. There is a need. We are busy. I think we've been very busy. We're almost as busy as if we were on campus, if not more so. The one thing that we're noticing with students being remote, and since the pandemic especially, is that the retention for the number of sessions has increased. It's almost doubled, where we would average about 4 to 5 sessions with certain students to almost 7 or 8 sessions on average, which is definitely a significant jump. So students are staying longer with with our counselors, and that can be due to a number of factors. Maybe more of a comfortability in doing it online, more of not having to come in, more of being able to more of a flexibility to be able to keep their appointments. There's a number of factors that come into that: privacy concerns, stigma concerns, you name it. I think we've seen it. So I think going forward, it's definitely a consideration because there is a need, pandemic or not. There'll be, pretty much a need. But right now, I think especially with the pandemic, us, and especially returning to campus, that's going to be a transition in of itself. And a lot of our students had struggled, not only with COVID-19, but with the racial tensions from George Floyd, the Asian American violence. We encounter that with our students, on a daily basis. It's either one student's coming in with a relationship issue to another student coming in where their family died. It's an international student, family died in their home country, and they can't get to see them. Because of the restrictions with COVID-19. These are different things that we help with our students, and histories of trauma and abuse and a wide variety. So there's definitely a need. I mean, there's always room for more. There's always room for growth. I definitely, we failed to mention before, the Wellness Center is also IACS accredited, which is the International Association for Counseling Services. So we are accredited community college center. I think the only other college within CUNY that is accredited is Staten Island, which is amazing, and which is amazing for us. And even with this grant, this is actually the second time we've been awarded this grant. We'll talk about that later, I guess, because we're going to talk about the grant. And we're the only CUNY institution to be awarded this grant twice. So I think it does say a lot for the services that we not only do provide, but the need that's out there for our students. So I don't know, Shante, if you want to add anything to what I said at all.
To echo what Regina was saying, there has definitely been an influx in the number of students who have requested counseling services. But, one thing that I love about my colleagues, not just in the Wellness Center, but LaGuardia at large, is that we're able to pivot. That's like the word that nobody wants to hear anymore because it was overused during the pandemic. But we were really able to move with the ebbs and flows so that we can best meet the needs of our students. And in addition to that, we also assist our students with referrals. So, it's not that we're pushing students out of the Wellness Center, but like Hugo said, if you divide the number of LaGuardia students by the number of counselors we have, it can get a little overwhelming. However, that's not why we're referring students. We're referring students because we're not always going to be able to meet the needs that a student comes to us with. Now, granted, the staff at the Wellness Center, I'll include myself in that, we are stellar. Like, we come from a wide range of backgrounds. Regina has her social work background. We have the mental health counselors. I'm the psychologist. Some people are trained in this modality and that modality. So as a staff, collectively, I think that we are very well equipped. But let's say a student has a history of mental health service usage and they've been off of their medication for 3 weeks. That's not something that we can assist them with. However, we can assist them by making the referrals that they need that would better suit them. Referrals in their borough, referrals, in their county or whatever. So we assist students with that as well. We also have a partnership with Northwell, which is Long Island, LIJ, Long Island Jewish Hospital, as well as not NUMC, North Shore University Hospital. Those are two of the local hospitals that fall under that umbrella. They have a behavioral health college partnership program. And basically, that connection means that if we have a student who would benefit from being further evaluated, then we have a fast track to their program. So any of our students, if they're in, distress and they're an imminent risk to their self or others, we can contact Northwell, the Behavioral Health College Partnership Program, and we call their EMS lines directly, and our students can be picked up. So sometimes, when we're on campus and you see the ambulance behind one of the buildings or on the side of the building, that might be for one of our students, but you would have never known, because the partnership with them also ensures a certain degree of confidentiality and anonymity. So the student could be getting on the ambulance because they, broke a bone or something. No one knows. So, I think that's another aspect of what we do, the crisis management. We are equipped to assess and we're equipped to treat, but we're also equipped and clinically trained enough to know when a student needs to be referred to a higher level of care.
Yeah, and I think in addition to that, the nice thing about this partnership is that we are, with the pandemic, we are able to have students picked up directly from their homes if need be, to be able to be brought in for emergency care. So it really, and it's quality care that the students will receive. So, and I think when we, as part of, of the wellness center, as part of what this grant's going to hopefully help us with, is being able to form additional partnerships with other institutions in the local community so we can make those ease of referral resources. Because to get an outside clinical appointment in the community, there are wait lists most of the time, or insurance issues. And again, these are some of the challenges our students face constantly. Being able, or finding an organization or a community center where they speak the students' language if their English is not their native language, and really helping them culturally being able to receive the support that they need.
Yeah, I wanted to make a correction. I wanted to get Frank's name right.
Yes,
Latera Bellino.
correct.
I said Bello, who I understand maybe actually watching right now. So it's important we get Frank's name right. uh, uh, and another thing I was going to say, what, for faculty to understand as well as staff, that if we want to recommend a student for services, that's about as far as we can go with it. That if a student is not willing to take advantage of the services, there's nothing we can do. And I know this from personal experience, because I had a student who tipped me off through an online journal about, and so something that I think that they believed I wouldn't read, and then I did read, and was certainly suggesting that kind of language, which sends off the bells. And I did. I walked this person to the offices back in those days. I don't know if you knew Mitch Levy. Was it Mitch Levy, who was at the
Yeah.
time around, and
Yeah.
but the student, I think, refused services at the time, and I don't know whatever happened. I don't. I believe he actually dropped my class, so I there was nothing I could do at the time. But it's particularly, that's a little frustrating. But people need to understand, again, that sometimes staff and faculty can make recommendations for students to take advantage of the services, even encourage them, even walk them down. But once we've introduced them to the center, it's on them to follow through, and there's nothing we can do. By the way, let's do the station ID right now at 128. You're watching LaGuardia Web Radio WLGR. The show is What's Going On. I'm your host, Hugo Fernandez. And wait a minute, now I've lost my, I can't even remember the abbreviation. Today's show is with my guest, Dr. Shante Bassett and Regina Varon Mignano of the LaGuardia Wellness Center. And we're about to start talking about the Campus Leaders Against Suicide project, which has been awarded a 3-year grant of about $300,000 from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, with funding provided by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services through the Garrett Lee Smith Campus Suicide Prevention Program. So let's talk about the grant. The one thing I do know is that students at this age, suicide is a big issue, right? Our students, not just our
Yes.
students, but college students in general. It is a dicey time, psychologically and emotionally, right? So the fact that the money is there for this kind of thing speaks to that, right?
Right. Yeah, no, definitely. This grant has been, we were very happy to get this grant, and part of what our goal is for the grant, and by the way, the grant will begin, the funding for this grant, and the grant will actually be launched in October of this coming year in the fall. So the program is going to be based on the premise that suicide risk is three-tiered. So when we talk about suicide, as a faculty member or staff member, you may have a student coming, you may notice a sign of student distress, not sure what to do. You're seeing, and the student may come to you requesting help, and not knowing what to do, is a frequent common a common issue that we sometimes receive, hear from other faculty. So part of our program is that we want to include an early identification and assessment of at-risk students and help train not only faculty and staff, but key personnel here on campus in order to identify at-risk students, whether they might be in mental health distress or they might, there's a potentiality for suicide, and be more of in the preventative factor and really helping the staff identify students that, might need help. How to have that conversation about the wellness centers. Like, this is where we offer how to call us for questions, how to ask questions, how to be able to do that, how to know what to do, what to say. And that's part of what this grant is going to help us with, is to really help us help faculty and staff and training them on how to identify students who might be at risk, how to refer them to, how to bring them to us here at the Wellness Center, and what to do if the student is really at risk or we're not available for whatever reason, especially if we're not after, because we do have an after-hour service between public safety, and we also have a 24-hour outreach service for our students. So really, and also promoting suicide awareness and prevention to the different student populations, reaching not only our general student population, but population where there is a higher percentage of individuals at risk, our BIPOC population, our LGBTQ population, our immigrant and ESL and bilingual student population, even our deaf and hard and hearing population, which is very much an untapped population at LaGuardia. Although we do provide support services, there is a lot that goes into working with a student who might be deaf and hard of hearing, especially with the sign language interpreter and so on and so forth, but really helping to really assess those students appropriately. Part of the three-tiered risk is really first identifying frontline staff and individuals, which includes public safety, health center, areas where student contact is most frequent, advising. I'm not sure. I hope I'm not forgetting anything. I don't know. So, peer, and also with peer programs and different campus life and peer programs and services. So part of our grant is also looking at educating students and helping students understand other students who might be at risk, because a lot of times students will go to other students rather than coming to a faculty or staff member if they're in distress. And students may not know what to do, or they may not be as well versed. So helping students understand what to do and what not to do, and counseling, the student shouldn't counsel another student. They should really work with helping the student know that there is support here at LaGuardia and there's support there for them. And finally, really destigmatizing mental health and mental health support. And a lot of the populations I've mentioned, there is still very much a stigma against receiving mental health support. A cultural stigma, a religious stigma, whatever the case may be, and really helping to reduce that stigma and helping students know that this is something that can be very, very helpful for them. And especially I think with the BIPOC community as well, there's a huge stigma in
The
getting mental
the
health
bi
support.
the
BIPOC,
bi
BIPOC. Yes, I'm sorry. It's the yeah.
it's
Help me with the acronym here. I'm sorry. It's with Black
I believe
Latinos
it's Black Indigenous people of color,
color.
or
Yes, you got it. Yeah, Black Indigenous people of color. Sorry about that. So really helping them, and again, forgive me for using acronyms.
That's
I
okay.
should
We all
be
do it.
very.
It becomes habitual.
So really helping them to reduce their stigma so they can reach out for more services and reach out for more support. The Asian American community as well, and helping, culturally, there is very much a stigma against mental health, and really working to help destigmatize that and helping students feel comfortable in coming forward. Um, and that's really the crux and the meat of the grant. Part of my role on the grant is the project investigator with Frank Laterra-Bellino, who is also the co-project investigator, and Matthew Jaffe, who's not able to be with us today as well, and Dr. Bassett are our outreach liaisons, where they provide us with consultation support and help with that outreach and reaching out to students, faculty, and staff, and planning and coordinating this effort and bringing students in. So it's really three-tiered: doing the outreach and education to our, to the college community, faculty and staff and students. Um, More education with our frontline staff and frontline individuals to make them almost, in a sense, kind of peer advocates or advocates for our students, to help them bring them in, and to also help educate other faculty and staff, and to further educate our own staff in the Wellness Center, and really in developing more programming for our own students, and being able to bring in students. And lastly, part of what the grant does is, part of our role in the grant is to really help us develop community outreach to the surrounding community, in order to receive support from other counseling, mental health, and programs that are out there, to be able to refer students to make connections for our students, so we can ease the transition from our support services to long-term support services if they do need it, or any other support services that they might need.
We're going to give the mic to Dr. Bassett, but before I do that, I just want to tell you, when I was thinking about getting, when I was in college and thinking about getting, some help, I remember my mom saying to me, "There's a woman with a master's degree in kindergarten education from Cuba who said to me, 'They're just going to teach you to hate me.'" That was her thought of what was going to happen if I went to get help. And in some ways, she was right. But I mean, I've turned the corner with that. I'm on the other side of it now. But certainly but I'm just saying, like, being, Latino, Cuban American. That was my mother's response to me when I said I was going to go get oh, they're just going to teach you to hate me. But Dr. Bassett, did you want to chime in on
Yes.
some aspects of the grant as well?
Definitely. And what you said is so important. While it was comical, it's also true. Like, so many people, and I think I mentioned this earlier, there's so many people who are fearful about utilizing mental health services because of the stigma, because of what they've seen in the media, what they've seen on television. So part of what we will be doing as part of the grant, specifically in the outreach component, where Matthew and I will be collaborating, we want to normalize the utilization of services. And because we have the funding, we'll be able to do that in creative ways, so that our students know it's okay to talk to someone. There's plenty of research that suggests that, a lot of people don't utilize mental health services, especially people from the BIPOC population. It's Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. Many people do not utilize services because they think that, oh, if I go to therapy, then that people are going to think I'm crazy. No. If I go to therapy, they're automatically going to, make me take medication. Also no, like we're not even equipped to do that in the wellness center. So I think part of the education piece is just basic psychoeducation and letting everyone know what mental health is and what suicide prevention is. You can't talk suicide prevention without speaking about basic mental health concerns and mental illness, because it's almost like giving someone a band-aid, but if they don't know what a band-aid is and don't know how to use it, then it's going to be useless. So we can talk about suicide prevention, but what's suicide? There might be people who come from backgrounds where it's never spoken about, so they might not even know what it is. And also educating them about the intricacies of suicide and suicidal thoughts and things like that. It might not look like what you saw in the last movie you watched. The thoughts, things start before there's an action. There's a thought. There's this premeditation to it. So a big part of the outreach piece is also education, training, education, and just offering those services for everyone in the LaGuardia community. We can't equip the faculty and staff to recognize signs of depression and suicide in the students. When Regina said, it's so true. Even as kids, when we were teens, who did we listen to? Did we listen to our parents, or did we listen to our friends? Even if our friends were giving us awful advice, right? So we have to equip the students as well, because they talk to each other. Like, they're the ones who are interacting the most. We see our students as professors. We see them, once to 3 times a week. Our students are seeing each other regularly because they have group projects. They're, consulting each other with, about projects and homework and things like that. So it's important that we are well-rounded when it comes to what we offer with the grant and how we conduct our outreach.
Absolutely. And I think you brought up a good piece. I'm sorry, Dr. Bassett. You brought up a great piece about media. And a lot of times media portrays mental health and suicide. It dramatizes it, but in a very, very unrealistic way. And that's part of some of the stigma that we're fighting against, and unfortunately it's perpetuated. But again, that's talking about media and mental health. That's a whole, probably another radio show where we could have a huge discussion about. But it's very true. Yeah.
Well, you keep talking about this, and I just want to say, and probably Dr. Riccio is chomping at the bit behind the scenes, that the radio station is a tool of communication. So if you wanted to fold in some of this outreach to talk about these things in a vehicle which archives, can be listened to on demand, but can also be live and can incorporate different folks to talk about the issue, you should speak to Dr. Riccio about doing a show about that. Here at the station, we're always trying to find ways to be a tool of the community. And I can't think of anything more important. And I'll tell you again, I always identify with our students because I feel like I've been through a lot of the things they've been through. And I certainly struggled with issues, psychological issues, as most of my life to this day. And when you were talking about the pandemic, and I was thinking about how, I'm certainly feeling the pressure. So I can only imagine what my students are going through with the online classes and stuff. But when I was in college, I had a friend who was a very gifted journalism student. We worked together, and he was one of these people that wanted to be famous and was trying to figure out how you do that, and had made probably unrealistic ideas of what was necessary, and it didn't happen fast enough for him, and he ended up dropping out of college, joined the Marines, and then we found out about a year later that he had killed himself, having written a lot of things that about what he was going through at the time. And that's when I just realized that how something like that, it can happen, like where thoughts go, how it can lead down. Somebody I did not expect that. I expected him to succeed, and instead he went this other way. And so this is a real issue. This is a real concern. And I don't think folks are as aware of that, particularly pressures. When you were talking about pressures of the college, I was thinking about, I've got, Wednesday, my class is doing presentations, public speaking. Number 2 fear after death. And I make them do it because I believe that if you can, we believe that if you can teach somebody how to do something, that is did we lose Dr. Bassett? If you can teach, then the material better than anybody's going to know the material. But yeah, it looks like we may have lost Dr. Bassett. But anyhow, but I think about maybe sometimes the pressure I could see that these kids are going through in getting ready for class. I don't know if Chris, can you tell us what happened to Dr. Bassett? She's there, but it looks like we've lost. Okay, she's
There
back.
she is. She reappeared.
Back, Dr. Bassett. You're just in time because we're moving into the last quarter hour where we will take questions from folks who are watching. We have a lot of folks watching. We have about 8 people watching today. So if folks have questions, they can put it into the stream chat. Or Dr. Richard will send them to me. But let's talk about we usually also talk about the future here. So you're getting the money. I mean, you can start spending the money in October, and it's a 3-year grant. So what can we expect in the first year starting in October?
Good question. Definitely, one of the aspects of the grant is to hire an outreach coordinator, which will be a full-time licensed mental health professional, to help coordinate the outreach and education, and also act as a point of contact for students who might be in distress or for faculty questions within the wellness center. So that would be, hiring that person to help and assist with the outreach efforts of that grant. So really getting that person on board and beginning to develop outreach initiatives and educational initiatives. So, for example, expanding our mental health first aid training program that we currently have at the Wellness Center, implementing finally our QPR program, which is called Question, Persuade, and Response, which is a shortened version. And this will be targeted primarily towards faculty and staff because it's about an hour and a half long. And it focuses specifically on suicide, the aspects of suicide, what to notice when a student might be in distress, and what exactly to do. So it's very much a shortened version of it, but very, very effective, and it targets that specific area. And that's something we definitely want to get to faculty and staff, a lot of our other frontline team, and also to specific student groups on campus. The other aspect of this grant is soliciting and recruiting student peer advisors, and so the development of a student peer advisor program through this SAMHSA grant. And through that program, each students will be recruited, go through an interview process, and if they do well, they will be paid a stipend for their services in being able to support and spread the word to the different populations on the campus, just specifically to students on campus, about not only about the Wellness Center services, but also about mental health and suicide, in hopes to really demystify and destigmatize what mental health and suicide are, and the fact that you can receive help. So that will be pretty much to build up within the first year. And then beyond, for the other 2 years, it'll be pretty much an expansion of all those initiatives. And I forgot to mention the development of a mental health committee on campus, to really start addressing collectively some of the issues that faculty and staff see with our student population and some of the challenges that they encounter. Again, we had a mental health committee on campus several years ago, which unfortunately disbanded, partially
due to funding and also partially due to the pandemic. So we're hoping to now with the funding that we have, we're hoping to reintegrate that as well, and to be able to bring faculty and staff together from key areas to really talk about what they're seeing, what the needs are. Again, needs have changed since 5-6 years ago when we first had the grant. So really reevaluating that and reevaluating how we would approach our population. Maybe there might be more new workshops, more issues. Shante, is there anything you want to add from the outreach perspective at all?
No, I think that it's almost like divine timing that we are receiving this grant while we are, while the world is opening up, so to speak, while we are, planning our return to campus. Because like Regina said, the needs are different, in the way that our students are presenting those needs. It's very different. So I think that, like I said earlier, this grant is going to help us and equip us to not only recognize those differences and the nuances that have been presented by the pandemic, but also equip us to, be more effective in reaching out to students and letting them know that it's okay to seek help. Like, this is the time where people are going to, everyone's excited about returning outside and, going out, but then you'll have folks who have a panic attack and they don't understand why. Well, because you've been in the house for the last year and a half. And not that you haven't, not that you've forgotten how to interact with people, but it almost might be like sensory overload. Regina's familiar with terms like that, right? It might be too much for us to handle. So I think as we are returning back to some sense of normalcy, it's going to be really important that we work this grant to the best of our ability so that we can reach out to our students and let them know that, you might be feeling different. You might be, having different responses than you would have when you walk to campus, in 2020 and 2019. So I think that, we are definitely in a good place. And this grant is going to a better place to reach out to our students and our college community at large, so that we can, do our part in easing the transition into this next phase, whatever that may be.
By the way, we're running out of time. We've got about maybe 5 minutes, so I wanted to give you an opportunity. Any last things you want to say? I mean, if I had a question, I would say, like, what can staff and faculty do to help? Because it sounds like $300,000 sounds like a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money, especially over 3 years. Like you said, hire somebody. I could see all the money going just for that one person, right?
Yep.
So, but any last things you'd like to say, or any way that we can help as a community?
Parting words: refer. Refer. If a student comes to you and you have concerns, err on the side of caution and reach out to the Wellness Center at lagcc.cuny.edu, and we will assist. We always have a counselor on crisis duty. So if a student is in distress and they're an imminent risk to themselves or others, we can assist. And also for the faculty and staff who are, interacting with these students on a regular basis, it's okay to not be okay. These are unprecedented times. People are having responses that they've never had. And, we have EAP for that. But as professors, we can't, and professors
EAP?
and staff, I'm
EAP.
sorry, employee assistance program.
Yes.
We offer services to students, but we also offer trainings for faculty and staff so that they can be better equipped to assist our students. It's okay if, it's like, this is a lot. My students are, if you're teaching a creative writing class and the students are writing like their deepest, darkest, like, it's okay to refer to us. You don't have to handle all of that. That's what the Wellness Center is for. So just letting all of you know that we are here to assist. Attend our trainings. When Matthew sends out his amazing emails letting you know what's going on, come to our trainings, encourage your students to come to the Wellness Center, even if they just want to talk and process something, that might be perceived as innocuous. Tell them to come and see us. We're here.
You know what, also, students share our link. Our link is on the website where students can actually go in and request, just fill out a form to request an individual appointment with a counselor. They may not want to approach you, or they may feel afraid to approach, or they may be silent, but sometimes just sending an email out to all your students in your class, putting it in, putting information about us in your syllabus, like a blurb in there. You can receive, if you are in need of support services or counseling services, here's the wellness center, here's our phone number, here's our link. Have them reach out to us. Just do it, do it like that. Let students see that, very passively, but sometimes that helps, just having that information there. They may not be ready to approach you, but they might be ready to reach out to us. Those are very, very simple ways of doing outreach to your students and spreading the word, just period, spreading the word, and really attend our trainings.
And attend the trainings and also meet students where they are, like putting the blurb in the syllabus. I love that idea, Regina, because they have to read the syllabus, although we as professors sometimes wonder if students actually read the syllabus, right?
Even sending it out as a blackboard, I know, sending it out as a blackboard announcement. By the way, here we are. Here's the wellness center. Here's their activities. Really kind of just showing them, even if they don't want to go to any of our activities, just sending them the link to request an individual session. That sometimes just helps.
Yeah, it's there when they need them. And part of meeting them where they are is utilizing what they access most. We have an Instagram page, we have a Facebook page. So, they might not want to email wellnesscenter@lagcc.cuny.edu, another shameless plug, but maybe they're more comfortable going to the Facebook site. We have a lot of options for our students because we want them to come see us.
So we're out of time. I just want to say that you are in my syllabus. And I also want to say that if you do create a community of students who are supportive, because that is, I think, in the name of the grant itself, right? I'm trying to pull it up here. Campus Leaders Against Student Suicide. Well, I guess that means everybody. Right. But there's nothing more powerful than a student who walks into the room and says, "Hi, I wanted to talk to you about the Wellness Center. Something I've taken advantage of. It's really made a difference in my life." And that they see, somebody who's actually utilized the service, that could be very powerful too. But I just want to thank the both of you because we've run out of time. The show is What's Going On. I'm your host, Hugo Fernandez, here on LaGuardia Web Radio, WLGR for now. Look, in the fall, we'll be changing. And my guests today have been Dr. Shante Bassett and Regina Varon-Mignano of the LaGuardia Wellness Center. And we've been talking about the Campus Leaders Against Student Suicide project, which was awarded a 3-year grant. The second time, we are one of the only institutions who have won this twice. Over $300,000 from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, with funding from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services through the Garrett Lee Smith Campus Suicide Prevention Program. Please, folks, take advantage of this program. And our students are at a very vulnerable age. We have a very vulnerable population. We know what we're going through. We can only imagine what they're going through. And I wanted to dedicate this show to my friend Bruno, who would have been nice if he'd have made it. And it would be interesting to see what he would have written if he had not gone the other way. And we're going to go out the way we started the show with James Taylor with some good advice. So, Mr. Pope, please take us out. Thanks for watching and listening.